Hi everyone, it's Amy here, welcome back to my channel. So today I've got a lovely video for you. I'm really excited to do this one. I've seen a few people do a similar thing, which is my 2020 book awards. So essentially I've created 12 different categories so that I can share some more books that I loved, that I didn't love with you, that I've read from 2020. As I have 12 different categories, I'm not going to go too much into each of the books that I'm talking about, but I will give you a brief little reason as to why it is in the category that I've given it. So we'll start with category number 1, and this is Best New to Me Author, and that goes to Kate Morton. This is The Forgotten Garden. It was one of my top books of 2020. I will leave a link around here so you can go and see that video and you can learn what this book is about. But after reading this one, Kate Morton became a firm favourite, and I even went and bought all of her other books so that I could then enjoy those at my leisure. And the next category is Best Audiobook, and that goes to Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. Now the audiobook is read by a lady named Juliet Stevenson, and she just absolutely spun the story for me. I loved the sound of her voice. I loved listening to it. It was one that worked really well because I like to speed up my audiobooks, and sometimes when you do that, the voices become really difficult to hear. So you have to speed it back down again, but this one worked really well in the top speed. I understood her. I feel like she definitely made that story for me. Her voice was just beautiful. If I've done wrap-ups with any of these books that I'm mentioning, I will leave them linked down below so you can go and see my full thoughts on the books themselves. Next up we have Best Non-Fiction, and that goes to The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read by Philippa Perry. Again, I listened to this one on audiobook, but I do think I will be purchasing it before I have children in paperback so that I can nip in and out of it as I please. It pretty much says it in the title, but this one is a very good one, I would say, for anyone who is a soon-to-be parent or even someone who is already a parent. I think you could learn a lot from this book. Next up we have a Best Cover Design, and that one goes to The Familiars by Stacey Halls. This one, it's like speaks to my soul. I love like the autumnal kind of forest wildlife, all this like gold leaf on here as well, and then you almost don't notice, but there's this noose in here, which when I first looked at the book I didn't even notice it, but when I read the story and then looked at the front cover again, I noticed that noose in there, and I really like that. I think it's really clever. The end papers are really gorgeous as well. There's a little fox in there. It's just beautiful. I'm very happy to have this one on my bookshelf. The next category is Most Surprising, and that goes to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. So I read this one near the beginning of lockdown, and I had absolutely no idea what this book was about. I'd never seen the film, I'd never really heard anyone talk about it, although I know it's a very popular book. So I was kind of going into it blind. I just knew that it was very popular and that it was likely to be good. Wow, was I in for a shock. The book was good. I did enjoy it after I got over the extreme amount of graphic kind of sexual abuse, crazy violence, and like there was so much happening in this book. Murder, just all manner of things. Pretty much if you thought of all the gruesome things you could possibly think of, they were pretty much in this book. And I just wasn't expecting it, so it took me by surprise. I did enjoy it. I think I probably will continue on with the series. It's like a crime mystery type book, probably more on the crime kind of thriller end of things, which is not usually the type of book I would go for. But yes, have you read this one? What did you think of it? Did you know that it was going to be like it is? Next up we have Most Disappointing Read, and that one goes to Gingerbread by Helen Oyeyemi. So I have read all of Oyeyemi's fiction, and I find them very hit and miss with what I enjoy and what I actually just understand. She has a very interesting way of telling stories, and I feel like I get to a certain point and I'm like with her and I know what's going on, and then suddenly everything goes crazy and I literally have no idea where I stand, what is going on, what she's trying to tell, like what message she's trying to get across to the reader. Gingerbread, I just spent the whole time wondering what on earth was going on, which might just be a sign of me not being like highbrow enough and understanding enough to kind of know what she was trying to purvey. But yeah, I was really disappointed with that one. Next we have Best Classic of the Year, and that goes to Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. So I tried to read this book years ago, and I probably got about a quarter of the way through and then just put it down, never went back to it. And in my mind I thought I just didn't like the book, and so had never felt the urge to pick it up again. Now again, during lockdown, I decided to try and read through books that had been on my shelf for a long time, and this was one of them. So I started again from the beginning, and I absolutely loved it. One thing that really connected with me is the fact that this story is set in Devon, quite close to where I live, and so it just made me feel so homely and warm, especially during lockdown when the world was in such turmoil. This was just such a cozy, lovely, heartwarming read to dip into. Jane Austen writes a cracking story, so I would highly recommend if you haven't picked anything up from her. Next up we have Worst Cover, and that one has to go to Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. So as this is a classic and quite a highly acclaimed book, I imagine a lot of people know what this is about, but essentially it follows a man as he falls in love with a 12-year-old girl and his obsession with her, with possessing her, with being close to her, and all manner of quite disturbing things. But the way the story is told is just phenomenal. I really loved the actual reading of the book, the way that the author pervade these very kind of perverse and disturbing topics. But one thing that I did read somewhere was that Nabokov never wanted a young child to be actually depicted on the cover of the book, which is what we've got here, and I feel like this just, it juxtaposes, I think, what the author is trying to put out there, and having that girl on the cover makes it almost seem a bit smutty and like the author actually was writing a book with the idea that paedophilia and everything was okay, which is not, it's not what the story is about. So yeah, I really didn't like the cover of this one. I actually don't know why I ended up buying this one itself. I don't know whether maybe I got given it as a gift, but yeah, there we go. Next we have Best YA Book of the Year, and I haven't been reading a lot of YA recently. However, this one absolutely stood out from the crowd, and that is Deep Light by Frances Hardinge. She's very good at creating these dark, kind of atmospheric, enthralling reads. This one is set in a world where there were these huge gods that would rule the seas, and eventually these gods all turned on each other and tore themselves apart and were erased from the earth. We follow a young boy as he finds the still beating heart of one of these gods. He then takes it upon himself to protect it from smugglers and scientists and all manner of people that would want to get their hands on it for the magical powers that it holds. It brings up a lot of interesting conversations like worshipping gods and deities and all these kinds of things. It is also a little bit scary. I am a bit of a wimp, but it did kind of scare me a little bit in parts. Next up is Favourite Series of the Year, and that goes to the Old Kingdom series by Garth Nix. So I finished this series in 2020. I also read some companion novels which are also set in the Old Kingdom world. If you're looking for a female-led fantasy series that has a wonderful magic system and a beautifully set out world, this is where you need to go. Also, for a fantasy series, this first book is very short, so you've got no excuse not to read it. Our penultimate award goes to the scariest read, and I've chosen the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Again, this is a book that I read and didn't realise that it was going to be what it was. In my mind, when I hear vampires, I just imagine Twilight, so I think that people are going to be falling in love with them and stuff, and this is like the complete opposite of that. Very gory, lots of tense moments, and I don't know if I enjoyed it. I definitely found it scary. I'm not a regular reader of horror at all, so even the slightest thing can scare me. My final award goes to the Best Romantic Relationship of the Year, and that goes to The Binding by Bridget Collins. So there's a male-male romance in this book, and it's told beautifully. It's a slow burner, it's not like an insta-love kind of thing that you often see in books. It's just beautiful. It's definitely the thing that I loved most about this book, and I am so up for another book featuring these two characters because I would just want to read more of them. There we go, those are my book awards for 2020. I would love to hear down below what you would give for these awards. Come and have a chat with me in the comments. As always, I'll leave links to everything I've mentioned down below. All of my social media links will be down there as well. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Bye!